Hey everyone, it's your girl Maddie here, aka Beavermosh, and today I'm talking to you about Icons of the Melancholy. From the Connecticut-based This White Mountain is coming off of Fiat Productions. And on what I believe is this project's sixth release, This White Mountain releases some cold, reflective, atmospheric black metal. And while those features are definitely present, I don't think that description completely does this album justice, because while it shares features of a lot of atmospheric black metal out there, as I've already mentioned, it also has a lot going that differentiates it from the majority of atmospheric black metal records, and I will talk about that and explain that in just a bit. The composition style on this record is very black metal. When I try to differentiate this record, I'm not saying that it goes off the traditions of the genre at all, but also it's very different. It has that dark and outwardly scary approach at times, but it also makes heavy use of this quiet somberness and leaves a lot of room for deep meditation. And you'll notice when listening to Icons of the Melancholy, while each track has its discerning features, there are these passages, these melodic ideas that seem to come up again in different variations that tie the record together as if it's one whole piece. It's very cohesive and well packaged in that way. Hopeless begins with this meditative serenity, these clean, plucked guitars and these washing synths automatically bring you into this drifting, somber atmosphere. Starting the record on something so soft and quiet is risky, especially how they do it with these also clean sung vocals, not exactly how you expect a black metal record to begin. But what that does is when the icy screeches do come in and these gain-filled droning guitars do hit, it has led you into the hostility, and in that way the hostility is more understood. Overall, this track is incredibly ghostly and haunted, regardless of what tone the vocals and the instrumentals are delivered at. It doesn't matter. The guitars do a lot of interesting things here, including these somewhat serrated triplet patterns that are surprisingly groove oriented, especially for black metal, yet the way it's played doesn't feel that foreign to the genre either. However, destructive nature does not take the same quiet, loud approach that the first track did. Instead, you are immediately hit by these slicing guitar riffs and these siren-like tremolos. And This White Mountain shows a lot of flexibility in the vocal department. You know, coming in a lot with those high-pitched, jagged black metal screeches, but also incorporating these tuneful growls that you might expect from, say, a Melodeath album, honestly. This track is pretty dark and abrasive, yet there is this enchanting calm to it somehow. At least that's my experience listening to it, especially with the standout melodic work, which includes these quite emotive leads that are tossed in. The drums on Plight have this very noticeable clicking sound to them, and also have somewhat of a brightness to them. Definitely fits that wintry feel that This White Mountain wants you to experience. And vocally here, the way they're recorded, it sometimes feels like they're coming from a distance at certain points, especially on this track. adds a sense of desperation to the music, especially with the intentional roughness by which they are meant to kind of come across. There are times that the guitars will kind of drift into these more doomy, to borrow from the title, melancholic riffs that I appreciate quite a bit. On Eyes Like Fire, there's these buzzing guitar licks that sit on top of these dark, dense riffs, and that creates a strange sensation, in my opinion. There's this charm up front, but there's also this harrowing intensity at the bottom. It's like there's two fighting moods, and the way that sounds, it's fascinating to my ear. I also want to talk about these distressed howls that come out that are so show-stopping in their ferocity and their focused intent. However, at about the halfway point of this track, everything seems to come down on a crash, sending all the elements forward in full velocity. It's one of the most impactful and powerful moments on the record, especially with how violently the drums are unleashed here. I want to talk about the production on the record because this album sounds great. There's still a rawness allowed for it. It has a rough and grating sound, but also it's very crisp and clear, which is not easy to pull off, allowing said crispness to be there but not dilute the harsh edges. Well done. On My Own Wrath, this moody, finger-picked intro runs right into these brutal guitars and monstrous drums. The suddenness of that really hits you, but there's no clunkiness experienced at all in that transition. There's nothing overly complex in the riffing patterns here, yet there's quite a creativity in the chord progressions, in the rhythms. This is anything but generic black metal. Take, for example, these chunky digging strums that are tacked on to certain phrases here. It has a unique swing to it, and this leads seamlessly into the next track, Draining. The riffs do not stop at all. It becomes almost this part two of this continuous long piece of music. However, this chapter seems to open things up a bit. You get some more blooming atmospheric runs, these swelling guitars, and these airy skeletal drum passages. This track is quite grim, but also weirdly joyous and depressing. Feels bright. It also feels supremely dark. So many contradictions in the way this piece of music makes me feel, and in that way it's so intriguing. Also, all of these acoustic interludes here feel just as compelling and integral to tying the mood together. Feels vital, not just there as filler. Disbelief holds some of the most piercing riffs on the record, and paired with these absolutely vicious drum patterns just makes it the most plain, sinister cut on the record. Yet there are these kind of eccentric, winding melodic motifs that are tacked on to some of the riffs here. It's actually pretty sweet. There is this bridge where the vocals just erupt in dark passion. It's so emotive, so believed in their desperation. It's paired with a triumphant tone, however, especially as it works in tandem with these weeping, deeply felt guitar runs. Everything here feels like it's building in intensity and creating this intimidating wall of abrasive sound. There is this unbalancing spin to Hold Close. All of the riffs feel like they're flying out into this black hole spiral. It's wild and dizzying and quite the thrill, honestly. And while this track feels like its own distinct cut, there are a lot of ideas and kind of repeating motifs that make it feel like it's tied together to all the rest of the cuts. However, the way this album seems to flow so continuously is really intriguing to me. There's also this very gripping quiet section. The vocals here are just reduced to a whisper. The guitars gently strum with a completely clean tone. The drums kind of drift in the background. There are these beautiful woodwinds, I think. Just to have everything rush back into this great contrasting effect. Scattered Memories introduces this racing immediacy with riffs that rush forward with a direct intent, and it has this anxiety to it with a anguish and a jittering paranoia. The guitars have this frenetic twitch to them that are delivered through this hammering tone. It's so harsh in the most satisfying of ways. Rain ends the album on the longest cut at just under 11 minutes with these slowly picked, sorrowful sections that have this dark, chilling beauty to them. These soft, gentle, icy tremolos are just so hypnotic, has an ambient quality to it. Makes you just want to close your eyes and just get lost in the music. And some of those clean sung vocals that were at the beginning of the record come back here. It's a way to bookend the album in a cool way. And these softer, quieter passages carry us to the 3-minute mark of this closing track, where the metal parts just jump in. This White Mountain handles these sudden explosions really well, and from this point it's just a triumphant, almost post-black metal odyssey with changes in dynamics and intensity. There's peaks and there's fall downs, and it's here that I can sense This White Mountain really rejecting your traditional black metal songcraft. This White Mountain has successfully put together this intricately crafted and wonderfully tasteful black metal record that easily weaves through various moods and sonic tapestries. I really love how unwilling this project is to become one-dimensional. These different approaches and tonalities are all handled with equal care. For those who are interested in maybe the more ambient-oriented approach to this genre, or for those who just like to close your eyes and drift away to atmospheric aspects of black metal, then I think there's going to be a ton of things for you to digest and dig into on this record. If I had any minor criticism, maybe I could say that I felt some of the tracks could be trimmed. This is an 80-minute album, although that's just kind of nitpicking because I really enjoyed this quite a bit. And hey, what do you know? It's the end of the video. If you enjoy what I do, hit that like button. It'd mean the world to me if you consider subscribing. I have a Twitter you can follow. Link to that is in the bio of this YouTube channel. Leave a comment. I love getting to engage with those. And hey, you there, keep it metal. My name is Maddie, aka Beavermosh, and I am signing off.